All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. Stealthy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to StealthyHunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All Stealthy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.
You're listening to the Northern Hunter Podcast, home of all things hunting, fishing, and outdoors in Alaska.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is James Payne.
I'm Ryan Humphreys.
And today we are tackling a little bit of seasonal differences coming up and things you might want to know, ways to stay out of trouble, and a little bit of etiquette for the coming season. This one's releasing, the 26th of October. So trapping, predator hunting, all that's right around the corner. We've talked with some great people about that a little bit. And today we're going to dive into more of the Regs side of things and licensing, making sure you know what you can and can't do. Keep yourself out of trouble. So before we dive into that, if you guys like what we're doing here at the Northern Hunter, make sure you are helping us grow as fast as we can. Easiest way to do that is subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to it on. Leave us a rating and a written review if you would be so kind. That really helps out. We don't really do any kind of paid marketing here, so you guys are our best bet. So send it to all your friends if you think they can use the information we're sharing here. If you'd like to ask us a question, you can reach out to either our social medias if you search at The Northern Hunter, either Facebook or Instagram, or go to thenorthernhunter.com, and we've got a nice contact button there. We're going to be doing some Q&A episodes coming up here soon. Got a little bit of a stash of emails there. And if you'd like to support us financially, we would really appreciate that. We're always trying to do more stuff, get into new avenues. So we have a shop page on our website. We got some merch, some hats, hoodies, t-shirts. And our partners page is full of great companies that sell great gear, all related to hunting and getting you out in the woods. They've given us some discount codes. It's all listed right there on the partners page on the website or in the show notes of this episode. So if you click those links, use those discount codes, helps them out, helps us out, and we really appreciate all the support from all the listeners. It's kind of the whole reason we do this. Yeah. So going into wintertime up here, gets pretty long, dark, cold.
It does.
Nasty. There's a couple things you can do to keep yourself busy. You know, if you're an ice fisherman, then obviously you'll be going out and doing that. But for most of us,
if ice fishing can be considered busy.
Yeah, you know, at least you're out of the house, right?
Go hang out in a plywood shack on a lake, right?
With a fire blazing, though, if you can swing that, or propane heater. Right? Yeah. So that's the best way to do it. But for trapping or hunting, you can continue that through the winters in Alaska. There's several different ways to do that. But understanding that there are different licenses for different seasons and different rules for each license is important before you try to go out and do anything. Alaska has 3 primary licenses that I think if you're going to go get, if you plan on kind of living an outdoor life in Alaska and just getting out and getting busy, you should get all 3.
You should.
I have all 3 on one piece of paper because I get them all at the exact same time. So I don't have to carry multiple licenses or anything like that. And that's your fishing license, your hunting license, and your trapping license. Trapping license is the one that's becoming very relevant very quickly.
Yes.
Starting November 1st, you're going to use that a lot. So let's see here. The pricing difference too, we're going to look at this real fast. I have this pulled up at the top. The pricing difference isn't actually that much. It's like $85 for all 3 of them. So if you get just your hunting and trapping, it's $65. Just trapping is $25. If you get the bundle with fishing included, yeah, it's $85. So really not a whole lot, especially when you look at other states and what other states are charging for hunting licenses, and considering the fact that we don't have to buy tags or anything like that up here. You get all your tags over the counter.
Right.
It really just makes sense to spend the extra, $20 or something like that to have a little bit more freedom, a little bit more ability to get out and do stuff. But why would you want a trapping license in addition to your hunting license? You can hunt through the winter with your hunting license if you're trying to go after a couple of specific critters. But it really limits you to basically wolf and wolverine.
Right.
If you're looking at the hunting regs, you scroll down, let's say, we'll just use unit 20. That's our home unit. That's around Fairbanks area, 20B specifically. 20B, if you scroll down in the regs, you're going to see that at the bottom underneath sheep, there is a section for wolf and wolverine. Now, those are the legal parameters for taking a wolf or a wolverine under a hunting license.
Right.
And you're going to notice that those seasons do go over winter. So if you only want to hunt wolf and wolverine, then, or, any of that, then you can do that with a hunting license. Can't trap them though.
So with a hunting license, you can hunt more than just wolf and wolverine. Wolf and wolverine are listed with bag limits under each unit, right?
Yeah.
But if you go to the very end of the hunting regulations, the very end after unit 26, you'll see a fur animals, small game, unclassified game, and deleterious exotic wildlife section.
Yep.
But specifically talking about fur animals, which is how the hunting regulations classifies them.
Right, yeah.
You can hunt beaver, coyote, Arctic fox, red fox, lynx, and squirrel.
Yeah.
Squirrel I'm surprised aren't under small game, but
units 1 through 26, no limit, no close season.
Right. Now, the biggest difference here is going to be the fact that you have the units are different.
Yes.
The unit regulations are different under your hunting versus your trapping. You cannot trap under
Right.
hunting regulations, right?
So this
With a
applies to
hunting
predator
license.
hunting,
Yes.
basically, yeah.
You could, and then you can't hunt with a light with hunting regulations with a hunting license.
Gotcha. Okay. That's trapping reg only thing.
That's a trap. Yep.
Okay. Gotcha.
So there's a lot of exceptions that exist for trapping type stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
But so with red fox, depending on the units you're in, you can get 2 or 10. Some of them no open season, and for hunting regulations, lynx doesn't matter where you're at. If they're open, it's only 2 lynx.
Yeah.
Under a hunting license. So there is a little bit you can do there, but the amount you can do is much, much less.
Right. And in a lot of places, I think you mentioned this earlier, but if you go up to, let's just say, unit 20 in the trapping regs, lynx, your seasons are a little bit different. It starts, differently than it would if you were under a hunting reg. But yeah, right here under limit, no limit.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about any of that if you get a trapping license.
Right.
The other big difference is when you're looking at the sealing requirements of certain animals. So the sealing requirements typically under the hunting regulations are that you have to take it in to get sealed if the state requires you in that unit for that animal to be sealed under a hunt. If it was harvested under a hunting license, then it needs to be done within 30 days of the kill.
Right.
With a trapping license, you can basically push that out till within 30 days of the close of season. So you have a lot more leniency there.
Right.
Now you still have to, obviously keep track of everything and actually take it in and legally get it sealed if you are legally required to. However, with a trapping license, you're able to go out farther, stash your furs, wherever you're stashing them. A lot of people have remote cabins that they'll go to and stuff like that for trapping. And you don't have to worry about if you shot one in early November, that you have to get it in there before early December. Right. You can run it out to the end of that season and then get it sealed.
Right.
So it opens up a lot of leeway there, I guess you could say.
Another thing, big difference between predator hunting with a hunting license versus a trapping license is there's weapons restricted areas and hunts in the state.
All over the state, yeah.
Right. For bow versus rifle versus, size of rifle.
Yeah.
What you can hunt with what size of rifle, right? I know you can't hunt with rimfire.
In most places,
Right.
yeah.
But under a trapping license, you can. And so just make sure if you're hunting under a hunting license, predator hunting with a hunting license, make sure you have the right weapon in the area and what it opens up opportunities to have a trapping license in almost every case.
Right.
It's usually longer seasons, bigger bag limits like we talked about, more weapon choices. You can trap if you want, right? You find a spot you want to trap, and it gives you the opportunity to use, like I said, use things like lights.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, and there's a lot of details on that as well. So actually, that's a good way to get into this. How to stay out of trouble. So we will highlight a couple of the big ones. So for anybody that's curious, if you could just Google search ADF&G trapping regulations. It's like the second one down from that Google search will give you the year, so 2023 to 2024.
It was the first one for me.
Was it? Yeah, there was one above it for me, but then that'll get you the PDF to look at all of this. But we're just going to touch on a couple of big ones, just to kind of broadcast it out there and just give people that might not want to go through and read the whole book a couple of pointers.
Which you should do.
Yeah, you should definitely read the book. Absolutely. That's the big thing in this state is that ignorance is not an excuse.
Nope.
And the regs for both trapping and hunting are very in-depth.
They are.
And they've seen a lot of people try to pull loopholes, and they've, tried to close those loopholes as best they can. So definitely, make sure you're reading up on what you can and can't do.
Read everything pertaining to what you're doing.
Right. Yeah.
If you're only hunting moose, you don't have to read everything on bears, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and honestly speaking, especially speaking to the Alaskan audience, the people who live here, they do break it down by area pretty good.
Oh yeah, by area and by species, right?
Yeah, by area and by species. So even in the trapping regs, they break it down into certain parts of Southeast, certain parts of South Central, certain parts of the interior, certain parts of way up north.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking at going to that specific area, it's really easy to kind of zoom in the regs and not have to read all 100 pages or whatever it might be. But at the beginning of every book, there's a lot of pages of do's and don'ts, things you should know, things you should check before you go out there. If you're reading into the trapping regulations, there's a lot of different paragraphs. You're on page, almost 20 by the time you even get into the real unit regs.
Right.
Everything above that is all information for hunters and trappers before they get out in the field.
In the hunting regulations, you're almost on page 40.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And those are very important pages to read because they highlight a lot of really good information. Here they have whole sections on bag limits in different areas, what you can use as bait for trapping, getting extra permits for problem beaver control and stuff like that. So definitely go through and read all of these. As far as people looking at going out for trapping, and really, I guess this applies to hunting too, because of this does include the hunting with artificial light section,
right?
Which is very important for people looking to do this if they're going to go out predator hunting. So a couple of the ones I highlighted here that I wanted to touch on that I felt were important ones for people to hear. The same rules apply for wintertime as for normal hunting in regards to shooting from, on, or across a highway.
Right.
Can't do it. You have to be off the drivable surface.
Right.
You have to be, on the same side as the road as the game you're pursuing, shooting away from where people are likely to be. Simply a thing of, responsibility, honestly.
Right.
It's perfect, logical, common sense, but they have to put it in there anyway. So cannot shoot while you're standing on the road. In most cases, there are a few exceptions for hunting wolf and stuff like that, but in most cases, you cannot shoot from a vehicle either.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you are getting out of your truck, You can't sit there. You can't put the predator call outside and sit in the nice warm truck and hope something, runs towards you, and then shoot it from the driver's seat, right? Can't do it.
Right.
Like I said, there's a few, it does even say in here, there's a few exceptions, and to read further, it gives you the page to go to and all that.
Yeah.
But honestly, none of that applies to most of what we're going to be doing. So for wolf and wolverine, the airplane rules, the flying rules, you cannot shoot a wolf or a wolverine with a firearm until 3 a.m. The following day that you have flown a plane.
Mm-hmm.
Same as big game, right? That applies to caribou, that applies to moose, that applies to everything.
Right.
Same applies for those. Now there is a section in here, and this often goes by area, but you can shoot like it does specifically say like coyotes.
Yep.
There's a part in there where you can shoot a coyote the same day you fly if you're a certain distance away from the plane, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of those things that you have to look into, make sure you're educated on for the area you're going to be in if you're flying in somewhere. Let's see here. What's the next one I've put down? Use an aircraft, snow machine, motor-driven boat, or other motorized vehicle for the purpose of driving, herding, or molesting fur bearers.
Really?
Yep.
I'm just kidding.
Same as in the hunting regs. It's weird.
Imagine that.
So you cannot run down fox on your snow machine, is what that means.
You can't see a wolverine running along and just park on it?
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that falls under harassment. Unless it was a total accident and you can prove it.
Right.
But yeah, you're not allowed to, push them around, run them
Yeah.
down, wear them out, get them tired, like any of that. Like you can obviously use a snow machine to position yourself, right? If you're going to go hunt on this side of the hill, you can use the snow machine to get on that side of the hill even after you've seen a fox run through the valley. That's not harassing the animal.
Right.
But yeah, you cannot go full tilt boogie
Chase
straight
it down.
towards them.
Yeah.
And go chase them down. So keep that in mind. Also the same, you cannot take fur bearers with the use or aid of a machine gun, set gun, or a shotgun larger than 10 gauge.
Oh man.
I know. It doesn't.
It's like they're just running in from everywhere, and I just can't shoot fast enough.
Right. Got to bring your saw out there.
I need a punt gun.
Exactly. So, and this is where we get into a little bit more specific for these ones. So you had mentioned artificial light.
Yeah.
And we've talked about artificial light several times on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
using that to chase fur bears and whatnot. So this is a little bit of a long paragraph, so bear with me. I think I have read this once before on the show in the early episodes we were doing. I don't even know if we were in the 20s by then, because it's a very similar paragraph to what's in other areas of the regs. But so this says, you shall not take fur bearers with the aid of a pit, fire, light, other than sunlight or moonlight, laser light, excluding rangefinders, electronically enhanced night vision, any forward-looking infrared device, any device that has been airborne, controlled remotely, or communicates wirelessly and used to spot and locate game with the use of a camera or video device, any camera or other sensory device that can send messages through wireless communication, artificial salt licks, explosives, expanding gas arrows, bombs, smoke, deer urine, elk urine, chemical, excluding scent lures, or a conventional steel trap with an inside jaw spread over 9 inches. Exception with the killer style body grip traps, you can use those. That with the jaws that spread less than 13 inches may be used. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That seems okay.
Like a Conan Bear style.
Yeah. Okay. So now this is the part you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Artificial light may be used for the purpose of taking fur bearers November 1st through March 31st in units 7 and 9 through 26 during an open season. So if you live in unit 7 or units 9 through 26, you can use artificial light, being a spotlight, flood beam, rifle mounted light, some kind of flashlight style artificial light, to harvest fur bears. Now I have called because this is one that confused me. So in a different part of the regulations, it specifies it includes night vision, infrared, and all of those different technologies as artificial light. And then here it says artificial light may be used.
Right.
So I did call, I verified, and I was like, hey, these fall under the definition of artificial light in one section. Says I can use artificial light here. Is that all inclusive? And no, it's not. It is simply a beam of light projected from a flashlight of some sort. So still cannot use any kind of night vision per se. But if you're in those units during that time, chasing a legal animal, you're well within your rights. Otherwise, sorry, can't do it. Let's see here. Here's a big one. You cannot disturb or destroy beaver houses or any fur bearer den. This is a point I like, except
Muskrat huts.
Muskrat push-ups or feeding houses that may be disturbed during the course of trapping, which you talked about a couple episodes ago. Yeah. So those are some of the big ones I highlighted just to keep people out of trouble. There's probably twice as many of that, if not more, on this list, and it just continues down. And then, of course, each individual area is going to have its own set of additional or loosened regulations.
Right. So one big thing to talk about is incidental catch.
Yeah.
With trapping specifically. Yeah. And it's just in the regs right after this, right after what we just read. And with incidental catch, what that means is if you catch
a moose,
caribou, deer, or moose.
Yeah.
Right. There's other incidental catch birds and such, and the regulations, rules on those. I don't know if there even is written rules on those, but that you'll catch. But if you take a caribou, deer, or moose, big game, incidental catch. So you catch it. Usually that's going to be like in a wolf snare, is where those get caught. Right. Yeah. And if it dies there, your caribou, deer, or moose is cervid, right? If it dies at the location as a result of being caught, you are not allowed to continue to trap that location or fur bearers, or set up more for fur bearers at that location. You can't trap incidental catch.
Gotcha.
And you are required to salvage the meat and turn it into the state. To report the catch and turn it into the state, right?
Same as you would on like a DLP or anything else like that where an animal was taken out of season. Right. Yeah.
And you must move all active traps and snares at least 300 feet from the site for the remainder of the regulatory year.
Okay.
So that, that's a big deal.
That is a big deal. That's a good thing to know, because that can really, really goof up somebody's line if there's not really a good area close to where to divert the trap line.
It's obviously not foolproof, but there are things you can do, and I don't believe they're required in the state. But you can do stops at the end of your wolf snares so that it can't quite close all the way around, say, the leg of a moose, so it doesn't cut off the blood supply, right? And if a moose can stay alive, unless wolves find him while he's stuck there, right? Usually a moose will break a tree off. Yeah, especially if you put on smaller trees.
Well, and a lot of times on those leads too, you can get breakaway clips. That if something the size of a moose gets in there, as strong as they are, they'll be able to break away and take that snare with them. And you lose a snare, and that sucks. But at least you didn't. At least you didn't kill a moose accidentally.
Well, and it's funny because you would think that when something like a moose would step into a snare, put his leg in a snare or whatever, that they would do their best to get out and yank on it. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes.
Yeah.
You've got to you just you usually you're riding your sleds, you're on your trap line, and you come up to a spot. Oh, look, there's a stomped spot and there's a moose standing there. And sometimes all it takes is some shouting, some yelling,
and then they try to get out,
and they'll try to break away. Like you rev up your sleds, you ride it towards them. Like it sounds like harassment, but you're getting them to break away so that they're safe.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that they're running the other direction and it doesn't turn into a DLP kind of
Exactly.
Huh. They just kind of accept their fate.
It's funny. You'd think they really would try hard to get away, but I'm speaking from experience.
Right. Now there is an important caveat to that. Under the section earlier that says bait you can use, under what bait you can use for trapping, you are allowed to use game that died of natural causes.
Yes.
So long as the game is not moved from the location where it was found. So if you find, let's say, a wolf killed moose, right?
Mhm.
You can set up wolf snares surrounding that dead moose, expecting those wolves to come
Yep,
back.
exactly.
And that is a legal use of a big game animal that's been killed in the woods.
Right.
But it does say natural causes does not include death caused by human. Ergo, any kind of poaching or incidental catch like they just mentioned there. So
yeah, but you can take out, if you save your moose guts or whatever, you can take that out and use those to trap off of.
Yes.
Cannot use edible meat.
Yeah, they break it down really good. Yeah, the hide, viscera, head, bone,
Right.
any legally taken game. You can use, it says here, any part of a non-game species, animal species. So agricultural animals, things like that. It has, it outlines everything here as far as like what parts of fish you can use, what kinds of fish you can use. And it's really, really good information for anybody who's looking at getting into trapping. We're going to be talking about that in some future episodes a lot. And that's page 12 if you're curious what you can use on the trapping regs. So, well, this has been good. Let's take a real quick break, and I want to get into some etiquette. Hammer Bullets produces what we at the Northern Hunter consider to be the most premium and best working monolithic bullets on the market today. These bullets are easy to load, extremely accurate, and best of all, they're always in stock and ready to ship. The guys at Hammer designed them so that after penetrating the hide of an animal, it sheds its petals, initiating a massive energy dump while retaining the rear shank for maximum penetration. These bullets are built with 100% focus on how they perform on game, and their proprietary designs produce great BCs with specialized pressure grooves for amazing inherent accuracy and speed. They have a minimum expansion velocity of 1,800 feet per second, which allows for long-range shots, but with no maximum velocity, making them perfect for every cartridge from your granddaddy's old 30-30 to the high-velocity round like the Weatherby 30-378 without having to worry about your bullet failing. To view their expansive selection and find the perfect match for your hunting needs, go to hammerbullets.com and use discount code TheNorthernHunter to drop the hammer on your next adventure. All right, guys. So that was a few of the points for the regs. Obviously, go and read them for yourself. Be educated. Know what you're getting yourself into. But I want to divert a little bit and talk about not so much legal. I mean, there is one legal thing here I'm going to talk about, but more just etiquette when you're in the woods in the wintertime. Trapping, hunting, things like that. Because with trapping and predator hunting, things get a little tighter than they typically do with big game hunting. So we'll get into that. But initially, I want to make sure everybody understands their rights, and if you don't like trapping, your limitation.
Right.
So just like there's hunter harassment laws, there is trapper harassment laws. It is. I'll just read what they have here. It is against state law to intentionally obstruct or hinder another person's lawful hunting, fishing, trapping, or viewing of fish and game. So it's the exact same statute. Illegal activities include positioning oneself in a location where human presence may alter the behavior of fish or game another person is pursuing. This includes tampering with traps. It is illegal to create sight, sound, smell, or physical stimulus to alter the behavior of fish or game another person is attempting to take. Now, it does state here that this law does not prohibit lawful competitive practices, right? So if you're just happen to be hunting the same field as another guy or whatever, like that's not hunter harassment. Like, don't try to claim those laws. Don't be that guy. But violators of this statute are subject to a fine of up to $500 and up to 30 days in jail. So how does this apply specifically to what people are going to be getting into in the winter? One thing you'll hear about a lot, trapping's kind of a touchy subject with some people. Some people don't like the practice. They think it's harsh. They think it's inhumane, not realizing that, animals freeze to death of natural causes a lot anyways in the woods, and a lot of these body traps and whatnot. It's a pretty instant kill. Even snares, snares are pretty quick in most cases if they're caught in the right area. So trapping is a legal practice. It's an ethical practice. There's no moral issues with trapping. But you will have people that occasionally take issue with it, and they will take it upon themselves to find trap lines and run down,
or if they just happen to be out,
on their cross country skis,
exactly,
and going down your trap line, and they'll set off your traps if you have a bunch of footholds, or they'll cut your snare wire. They'll do all kinds of stuff. That's all highly illegal.
It is very much so.
If you are finding yourself in a situation where somebody's doing that to your line, that is very illegal on their part.
Set up a trail camera.
Set up a trail camera. If you're able to identify them, identify the vehicle that they drive up in, you can get that information to the troopers.
Right.
They'll take care of it. Other situations, we've had issues in the past with people at bear bait bringing in like bleach. If they find your bear bait and they don't like that you're bear baiting there, and they'll spray bleach all over the place. People will do the same thing with trap lines and stuff like that. They'll try to disturb the area as much as they can. They might not set your traps off, but they'll try to just dissuade animals from being on that line in whatever way. Also highly illegal. If you are in the practice of predator calling and you're set up somewhere and somebody realizes you're in there, and maybe you're not very far from the truck, right? Sometimes you have to be, sometimes you don't have to be. And they pull up, park right behind you, and they're blaring their horn, and they're, trying to scare stuff away. That's also illegal. That is hunter harassment, trapper harassment.
Yeah.
So make sure you understand that you have legal protection over these activities. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything illegal. If anybody has a moral qualm with that, they can take it up with the regs and the law.
Right.
And they do often. We talk all the time about how hunters and outdoorsmen need to make sure they're keeping an eye on what's going through as far as lawsuits and applied changes to regs and stuff like that, because there's always a battle going on trying to take the rights of people trying to get out here and just do legal and ethical harvest.
Yeah.
In ways that have been traditional and used for, as long as we've been around, basically.
Right.
Firearms have been used to kill animals as long as firearms have existed. It's not a new thing, Before that, it was bows and, sticks and bows, and rocks and stuff like that. I mean, there's always been hunting, always been trapping. But you are protected based on the laws here. But don't be trying to figure out how to word this. Don't push it
As a trapper,
or even a predator hunter.
Right.
There are good practices to stick with. There are ways to go about your business and your legal activity politely. There are ways to do it in a way that it doesn't impact other people, where you're not harassing the public, with your legal activity.
Right.
And a lot of that just also kind of falls back to what's highlighted in those first 20 pages of the trapping regs, as far as understanding where private land falls in regards to your trap line if you're going to be near civilization. If you're trapping right outside of town, one of the good things to do is make sure you're not running a trap line right across the backside of somebody's property.
Yeah.
A lot of property in the North Star Borough, which is where we live, borders state land, borders borough land, borders, public use areas. You got to make sure that if you're going to be in an area where people might have pets that run out, and, if they're running a farm or something like that, and they've got a dog that just kind of roams the yard and keeps things safe, which is common practice also.
Right.
Make sure that you're not endangering people's pets, because that's a good way. It's still illegal for them to mess with your traps, but it's also, there are guidelines for where you can set your traps in regards to where public people go. There's a lot of trails in the Fairbanks area, and I'm just using the Fairbanks area as a representation because that's where we live.
It doesn't give anything away, right?
Yeah, it doesn't give anything away. There's tons of people here. If you're trapping around Fairbanks, you're probably not doing that great anyway. But, ultimately speaking, there's a lot of trails here that people use recreationally on a regular basis. There's several around my house where, you can go miles and miles and miles of winter trail. And it would be great, phenomenal trapping areas. But there's people back there with their pets. There's people back there with, children. There's people back there that are just trying to have a good time. Just as much as you don't want them ruining your hunting, you can be courteous both directions.
Right.
You can not be in their way and they can stay out of your way at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and so in that, I mean, from both perspectives, right?
Mhm.
From the people who may not be trappers, but it doesn't matter what trail you go run your trap line on,
Mhm.
unless you hike and make yourself one path where only you can walk, and then you hike it, you're going to have other people ride your trail at some point, right?
There's going to be traffic.
Somebody's going to be out, snow machine, and be like, oh, where does that go?
Right, yeah.
And they're going to race down it,
Mhm.
and, and they'll probably mess up some traps and some sets. It's
and if it's unintentional, that's not considered harassment.
Correct.
Yeah.
Although I think people should pay attention to what's going on.
They should.
Right. And we'll talk about some more of that in a minute. But specifically talking about just good practices,
Mhm.
right? Like you said, people's property, or, if you are bordering somebody's property and it's the back 40 of their property, right?
Yeah.
And there's no sign of any action, no human footprints, no human
Mhm.
traffic, right? No, nothing but game.
Right.
You're fine, right?
Yeah.
You're definitely safe there. But public trails is all you have to trap, pretty much.
Mhm.
And around Fairbanks, like, there's some public trail areas I've thought about that are close to my house that I've
Mhm.
thought about walking to set a few snares, maybe some traps, and I may do that this winter.
Mhm.
It's a time consuming thing to do.
Yeah.
But
if you got a down day in the wintertime.
the problem is then you got to be out there every week to check it, right?
Right, yeah. It is a commitment.
It is, right. But, there's certain types of sets I probably wouldn't do in that kind of an area. You could trap off of a very widely used public trail
Mhm.
and still have good practice about it. Don't run footholds right next to the trail.
Right. Yeah.
Don't run snares right off the trail. It's
Right.
not that hard to step, 20 yards off the trail.
Yeah.
You get 20 yards of the trail, nobody else goes over there, right?
Right, yeah.
Especially put up trap line signs.
Mhm. That's the big one.
Put up some trap line signs.
I was just going to say there's areas that are now considered kind of recreational trails that were originally trap lines.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of signs where it says like historic trap line and stuff like that.
Right.
That typically means they've been there longer than you.
Right.
And if you see those signs, that typically means like, yes, people use this trail for recreation, but it is actually an official trap line. Be careful with your pets.
Yeah.
Be careful with everything.
So, another thing for trappers is for new trappers, you've never done it before. You're like, you get out and looking for spots, and you say you find a spot and there's some trap line signs. If they look really old, look for sets.
Right. Yeah.
Don't look to disturb sets, but look for sets. If you're out there November 1st, the season opener for most, there's some things that open earlier, right? But so there might be sets for other game. But if you're out there November 1st, maybe give it a little bit. If the signs if the signs look really old.
Well, a lot of guys will wait till December to set their trap lines.
Right.
Because that's when the fur
Depends on when
primes up and stuff.
Cold is and stuff. So,
Yeah.
right. Now, if the signs are really old,
Mhm.
if they look wore out, if they look 20, 30 years old, you can barely read the writing on them. That's the trapper's fault if he hasn't updated his sign.
Right.
Set some traps. That's my opinion of the matter.
I mean,
Unless
make sure
you-
he's not still there.
Right.
But yeah.
Right. Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
If he hasn't set his traps yet, if it's, November 1st, and, you've got to make a judgment call at some point, because at some point you're going to have a hard time finding trails that don't say trap line.
Oh, that's a very real thing. Yeah.
Because the trap line signs don't get taken down.
Well, and a lot of the trap line signs that you'll see will have identifiers. They'll have the person's name. They'll have sometimes have a phone number.
That's true.
Things like that. And trying to get if that's the case and it looks old, trying to contact the person to see if they're still using it is a good practice there, because you really don't want to get into a territory battle over anything.
So let me tell you, here's a quick story.
Yeah.
Regarding that. So I grew up trapping with my dad, and my dad and a buddy of his had inherited a trap line.
Yeah.
There was a friend of theirs, he had died. And they bought, there's a trapping cabin, and they bought the trapping cabin. So they inherited the trap line. And my dad and I actively trapped that for a long time, and my dad still does. But, in that area, we would trap from, say from the truck to the cabin was about 10 miles. Maybe it was 5 miles, somewhere 5 to 10 miles.
Yeah.
And then I think we had about a 20-mile line that went past the cabin. So nothing super long.
Yeah.
A lot longer than some people are running, but a lot shorter than others.
Mm-hmm.
And we would run past. And most of our really big stuff was past the cabin, because there was a lot more joyriders that would ride that first
Right.
first bit. So we didn't have, the in trail traps and stuff, unless it was like side trails that weren't ridden as much. We didn't set a lot of those. It was more snares and marten pulls and stuff like that. But we get out there one year and we've got signs from the truck to the cabin and past, right? They're everywhere.
Yep.
We want people to know. It says traps and snares in trail. There's a phone number, there's names. Well, we get out there and if I remember right, it was right next to or not far from after you pass one of our signs, there's somebody else's new trapping sign.
Oh, really?
Right. And we're like, huh. We didn't see any traps or anything he'd set. We took a picture of the sign and we got back to town. My dad called him and talked to him. Well, the guy took another trail, went another direction. He was trapping the same valley.
Mm-hmm.
He was, he would have been 100% legal to set traps on our trail.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
It's not good etiquette. It's not good ethics. It's not good practice.
Right.
But it's legal.
Yeah.
It kind of falls under the competition thing, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But he specifically did his best to stay away from ours.
Mm-hmm.
Right. My dad called him. He talked to my dad. I believe he offered to my dad, like, hey, I'll pull my stuff out if you don't want me there. And my dad said, no, I'd rather have somebody that's got a good sense about it here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And he did some muskrat trapping. If I remember right, he didn't even last the year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He pulled his stuff and did a little bit of stuff with his son, got out and then left. But that's just, good etiquette.
Well, and that's the right attitude to
Exactly.
have. Like you said, there's nothing illegal about competing for a trapping area, right? I mean, there's nothing saying you can't go 50 yards away from somebody and start setting more traps, right?
Right.
But in the same light, is it a good practice? Is it the right thing to do? When it comes down to we're all on the same team, we're trying for the same thing.
Exactly.
Is it even going to help your success? Because if you're trapping right next to somebody else's line, what if all the animals coming from that side are getting stuck in that guy's traps before they even hit your line? Similar with bear baiting. Setting up a bear bait close to somebody else is not exactly an ideal situation you want to be in.
Right.
Even if they're getting tons of bears, doesn't mean you're going to, 500 yards or a couple hundred yards away.
Well, and the other situation with a trap line or a bear bait is if you do a better job of scent and attractant, it may just mean that you bring, yes, you'll bring the critters to the area, but then they get the critters, right?
Right, yeah. Well, and another thing I've seen too, in addition to just being polite with each other, is like I've seen people that run traps on, publicly used trails.
Yeah.
Again, it's something you're allowed to do.
Yeah.
But a way that they do that to where it's not intrusive necessarily to all the people that are trying to just snowshoe through there or whatever, is they'll go off the trail a ways.
Exactly.
They go off to the right this way, 30 feet or so, 20 feet, whatever, just off out of their way where they're not going to be disturbed. And then you go off the left side a little bit, and then you go down a ways, and you're just kind of out of each other's way. It's just being polite, being being
in
a community, I guess.
And the types of sets you have in that kind of an area too, it's not necessarily a good idea to have. You might be 20 feet off the trail or 20 yards off the trail and have a lynx set or a fox set, right?
Yep.
And what's also going to be attracted to that is everybody's dog.
Right, yeah.
And those dogs have no sense of human smell, trying to guard against that, right? Personally, that kind of a set's not the kind of set I'm going to set where I think people are running their dogs.
Yeah, yep.
Now I have...
What would you set?
I would do like marten poles.
Yeah.
Right?
Dogs aren't going to get into those.
Right.
Most.
Right. Marten poles, I'd be fine setting snares, right? Because you set the snares off the trail. Only time that might be an issue is if, say a rabbit runs across the trail in front of somebody's dog and the dog chases the rabbit and it happens to be a trail where you set a snare. You've got signs on the trail. You've done the right thing.
Yeah.
If they don't have their dog leashed, that's their fault.
Yeah.
It's just...
And in most cases...
At some point, there has to be a line, right?
Yeah. And in most cases with a snare, if the dog gets caught in a snare and the owner's there,
they should be able to get the dog out.
Right. Yeah. It's not going to be they're going to notice the dog gone.
Exactly. But that's just, there's so many things you can do. If you do set leg holts or something like that off of a main run like that, get them, really get some distance. Something actually that works really well, even on a trap line that maybe hardly anybody ever rides, is to make a loop off the line. Like, just leave it and travel. If you're on a snow machine, you make your own little trail.
Yeah.
You can leave it and travel through the brush in the snow, a mile or two. If you're on foot, you could do a mile or two. You can just do a few hundred yards and make a loop, leave the trail at one point, come back to the trail at another point.
Right. Kind of use the trail for an access point, but not necessarily as your
And then
line.
out there, you can set those other types of sets because, if anybody's got any sense in their head, like, oh, that must be the trapper's trail, especially if you put a sign right there.
Right. Yeah.
They're not going to take their dogs over there.
Yeah.
Right.
They're staying on the well-beaten path.
Exactly.
Not taking that offshoot.
So all of this kind of leads right into the next thing we have written down here, which is trail etiquette
Yes.
for
The non-trapper.
the non-trappers.
Yep.
Specifically people who are riding snow machines and such.
Mm-hmm.
And actually there's one other thing that fits in here, and that is there's dog mushers also fit into this. And dog mushers will set up there's a trail. They'll have an area where there's a trail where it's pretty good flat country, and they'll actually ride it with their four-wheeler, and they'll comb it, kind of like they'll do like a snow, like you will on a hill for snowboarding and skiing, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And because they want that hard, flat, 4 foot wide space where they can run their dogs, because that's how their dogs operate best. They don't,
Right.
The snow machine trail that's beat up and loose all over the place isn't ideal for what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they'll actually do that with a wheeler, and then sometimes they'll even run their dogs with a wheeler.
Yeah.
And so that's that 4 foot wide plowed, combed area is great for that. But as a snow machiner or snowmobile, or however you say that, I don't know what the proper English word there is.
For wherever you're listening to this.
Yeah, exactly. As a guy on a sled,
Yep.
the trail etiquette with that is to stay on his trail, flat and nice. Don't gun it. Don't dig holes in his trail.
Yeah.
Like just be a good neighbor, right?
Yeah.
And usually those guys are a little further out of town, but there's a lot of snow sledders that go a ways out of town to go, oh, hey, here's a trail.
Right.
Take Quartz Lake, for instance. There's all kinds of trails out there.
Yep.
There's also trappers and dog sledders that have trails and stuff out there. I've ridden around out there a lot. And, you might ride around and find a trail. Great. But stay on his trail, stay flat, stay nice. Don't ride too fast, because if he's coming with his dogs, you got to get off the trail and out of the way. He can't just necessarily stop him, right?
Yeah. There ain't really an off switch to those guys.
Not like you can.
Yeah, not like a kill switch on a sled. Yeah.
So then where it comes in with trail etiquette on the trap line. If you see trap line signs, right? Trap, snares, and trail. That's what a trap line sign should say, just to let people know, be careful.
Yep.
There might be a more public use front part, kind of like we had, right? Where a lot of people rode the front part, but not very many people rode back because the trail got worse. And who wants to ride where there's getting smacked by willow branches, right?
Right.
In that kind of a situation, you want to stay on the trail. You might be following a trail to see where it goes. Completely legal. It's completely legal for you to ride wherever you want out there on your sled.
Yeah.
But if it says traps, snares, and trail, there's a certain kind of set. It's called a trail set. And it's set in a specific way. It's a trap in the middle of a trail. Right. So for one, don't walk your dog down there. And you don't really want to walk yourself down there either.
Yeah.
Because that's usually a wolf trap, and it's a big trap. Right. But if you run that trail in a snow machine and you're even halfway off that trail, your ski can put that trap.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And completely destroy that set. Something that trapper has worked really hard to put in. It's a lot of work. A lot of times you don't even get off of your sled, right? You like climb onto the sled you're pulling with your snow machine, and you'll work off of there. You'll toss like a drag off the trap, off the trail. Like you work really hard because you don't want any scent on the snow.
Yeah.
Especially for wolves. And, riding off the trail at all, you might find snares that way. You might find traps that way. Like if you want to see where something goes, but it's obviously actively been ridden and there's trap line sales everywhere, trap line signs. Yeah. Everywhere. Ride carefully. I get it. It's fun to jump on the side of the trail, gun it, and ride some powder.
Yep.
But that's not the place to do it.
Well, and the thing is, like, yes, there are a lot of trap lines in Alaska, but they're not everywhere necessarily. There's a lot of them that are
I agree.
widespread. There are. You can go anywhere in the state and
there's
find them.
a lot of trapline trails you're not going to want to ride.
Right, yeah.
They're not there for fun.
Yeah.
But there are some in valleys and flat country.
Yeah.
And areas that are fun to ride.
Yeah.
And when you see those signs and there's not already tracks everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it might just be a good idea. You know what? This is somebody's trap line. The nice thing to do here would be to turn around and go ride somewhere else. It's not like we can't find another trail a few miles away. It's wintertime. It's Alaska.
Right.
There's sledders everywhere. There's other trails, right? Anyhow, that's just a big thing that issues we've had with people out there. And, you know, what can you do? You don't know who they are. You know, they're not.
Well, and none of this is like an
It's not
enforceable
harassment,
thing, right?
But
Like
it's just being nice to your fellow Alaskans.
Yeah, we're all out here trying to enjoy the same
Exactly.
land, you know, and that goes for whether you're the trapper or the recreational user.
Right.
You know, if you're out there trapping, then be aware that
Exactly.
people are going to be recreating in that area, and make your sets accordingly. Put signage up,
Right.
make sure everybody knows you're there. You know, this isn't like, you don't have to be a super hidden to do this stuff. And the same goes for other people. You know, it's the same thing you'd mentioned. If you see these trapline signs and you want to take your dog on a walk, you know, usually if there's traps in the trail, they will put that on the sign.
Mhm.
You know, if there's not traps in the trail and they're just kind of trapping off the sides every so
Right.
often, then, you know, they'll normally just leave that part out of the sign. It's always a good idea to have your dog on a leash if you have a dog.
It is.
Always a good practice. I know it's kind of annoying when you're in the woods and they want to walk around trees, and then now you got to walk around the tree, and then, you know, it's like, but you know, they have these leashes that have, you know, the retractable 20-foot
Right.
leads. That's what I use for our dog. You know, and if you're in an area where there's no trappers, you know, there's no leash laws when you're out in the woods. Like,
Right.
you know, who cares? But protect your animal. That's your animal. It's your responsibility. It's not
Right.
the trapper's responsibility. His responsibility is to let you know that the trap line's there.
Exactly.
That's as far as his responsibility goes. If he is to let you know that he's there and you decide to run your dog off a leash
Mhm.
and your dog gets stuck in a trap, that is not the trapper's fault.
Right.
You know, that is your fault for not protecting your animal properly
Right.
for the situation you just put it in. And so just understanding those basic guidelines. And again, none of this is legal stuff. You know, we covered more of the legal stuff at the beginning of the show.
Exactly.
This is all just general good practice
I want to
stuff.
cover one more thing that
Mhm.
that really lands on legality and ethics.
Mm.
I talked this spring about what I found while I was out looking for a spot to put a bear bait.
You did, yeah. Touch on that again.
I
That's
found
good.
a spot where somebody had put in, looked like they'd hiked in. They may have ridden a sled, I'm not sure, but they'd put in a trap line,
Mhm.
and all they had done is put in marten sets, and they caught marten.
Mm.
And it looked like they set their sets. They may have checked it several times, but by the end of the year, they left their sets up.
Yep.
You know, and there's not very many good excuses for that.
No, there's not.
You know, only good excuse I can say is he's paralyzed. Even then, if he can talk,
Get somebody out there
get
to
somebody
go.
out
Yeah.
there, right? It is illegal to leave your traps past the date of
It
the
is.
season, right?
Well, and
you can't be out in the woods predator hunting and just not shoot, right?
right. Yeah.
Unless you don't have a gun and you're just taking pictures. Well, that's legal, but
Right. Well, and it falls under the same clauses like wanton waste and stuff like that. If you
Right.
if you go out there and you, let's say, I think you said there was a sign of animals that had been caught.
I
Correct.
I found
that one?
3 petrified marten.
Yeah. Yep. So if you're out there and you've got traps set
Right.
and you're catching animals and killing them, which I mean, as it's stated in the regs, you know, a human caused death is not considered
Exactly.
a natural death by Fish and Game.
Right. And I actually had to set off several other traps.
Yeah.
I also found sign that, you know, some of the sets were chewed up like by a bear. Like
Mhm.
there probably had been something caught. Like, you know, and it was disappointing to find. You know,
Yeah.
like, come on, dude.
Right.
You know, so what if you couldn't get back out here? Like you gotta let somebody know. You gotta get somebody out
Right.
there, right?
Call somebody.
But at the end of the day, it's your responsibility.
It is. And that is a big thing to touch on, especially at this point. Running a trap line is a big responsibility. It sounds all fun and games. It sounds great. It sounds, you know, you kind of get these pictures of these old, you know, trappers on snowshoes, and it kind of looks, you
Mhm.
know, fun and manly, and you're out there, which sure, right?
Right.
But it, depending on the size of your line, it can be an absolute full-time job.
Yeah.
You know, and you are responsible for going and checking those lines. You know, like you had said, you might go out there and set it up. But you got to be able to get out there every single week and check it,
Right.
if not multiple times a week, depending on where you're at. You know, you don't want to just be out there footholding critters and just letting them go to waste. There's a reason you're out there doing it. And so just understand that before you dive into it. If you don't have the time to commit, if you are one of these people that's so busy that you know you're not going to be free every Saturday, you're not going to have an evening free every week to go run this thing if it's a short line. You're not going to have the time to repeatedly go back and reset and check and harvest and all of these different components. Don't even set it up in the first place.
Right.
That's one of the few times you'll hear us say don't go out in the woods, is if you cannot ethically run that line, don't even bother.
Right.
Maybe stick to predator hunting. Get yourself a Fox Pro, get yourself a 22 mag, get out in the woods, a little light if you're in one of these units where you can use a light, and go enjoy that.
Right.
Go play around with that if you want to put down some fur. And then maybe in a year or two, you've got a different job, you have a little bit more time, a little bit more money, you're able to get away a little bit more. Now you can run a trap line.
Exactly.
That's the biggest thing with new trappers, is not understanding the time commitment it's going to take.
Right. So one more thing. While you're out trapping, you see what I did there?
I like that. Good job.
Batum 907 has trapping lures. They've got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I haven't used any of them. But if they work anywhere near what their bear lures work, there's going to be issues. They got all kinds of pictures of the fur that people have taken with their trapping lures. You can get a great discount with our discount code, the Northern Hunter. Or no, it's TNHP. TNHP at checkout with Batum 907. Also, I'm going to throw in there Stealthy Hunter rifle cover, or scope and ground cover, as he calls it. That's an excellent addition if you don't have a gun boot or something on your sled. Yeah, because a lot of times you are carrying a rifle of some sort while you're trapping, just for dispatch, right?
Exactly. Yeah. A 22 long rifle or something like that.
It'll help protect your scope, keep the snow out of it all, keep the snow out of the action.
Well, and I was going to say for snow conditions, that is where, I mean, don't get me wrong, that rifle cover shines year round, but in snow conditions, I love how it protects the action and everything.
When you're riding a sled, like a lot of times you got the pine needles and exactly.
Yep. And it's a phenomenal piece of gear.
Right. It's great. And I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. The glassing pad for sitting in the snow.
Yeah.
Whether you're trapping or you're predator calling, I know you can get all kinds of other pads, but hey, they're our sponsor and they're amazing.
And you know what? It's a good price for a good pad.
It is.
And the thing I like about it is it's built to last.
It is.
That thing's not going to get tore up anytime soon. I've taken mine out on some pretty sketchy rides and some, sat on some rocks and snow. It gets wet, it dries out fine. It's not going to get ruined. So, yeah.
Yeah, I took mine out with moose. I used mine a ton moose hunting this year.
Oh, yeah.
And I was sitting on some nasty stumps and rotten stumps and stuff. And I brought it home, and it's designed so you can pop the cover off the foam with the Cordura cover and throw it in the washer, right?
Yep.
And pull it out, and it looks good as new, or maybe stained a little, but hey, that just shows it's been used, right?
Exactly.
I don't like going out in the woods, and it's like showing up to a job site, and like you might have all the best tools, but when they all look new, it doesn't mean anything, right?
You got to rub them on the asphalt and the dirt a little bit, get some scratches on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very true. Well, hopefully you guys have gotten some good information from this one. We are going to cut this one off. We have preparations of our own to do for the upcoming season.
Yes, we do.
So we're going to get out and do that. Again, there's a lot more to the legal side than we talked about in this. We just touched on the big things that we noticed that we thought were worth mentioning. Make sure you are sure of the laws in your area before going out there. We don't want anybody getting hung up trying to just have fun, go get some fur, stay busy during the winter, and then end up getting hung up on some technicality.
Right.
They spell it all out for you in the book. It's all right there. Make sure you're reading it, and just make sure you're being, like, as you so greatly put it, Mo, a good neighbor.
Yeah.
Just a good person out in the woods that's working with people, whether it's other trappers or recreational users, snowshoers, skiers, predator hunters, any of that.
Right.
So just get out there and have fun. Just enjoy the wintertime. But guys, if you like the show, definitely subscribe. Give us a rating, give us a written review. That goes a long way in helping people find the show. That's kind of the only way they can find the show right now outside of social media. If you have friends that you think might enjoy listening, definitely share it with them. There's share buttons on every single platform. Yep. You can just send the link right over to your friends through text or Instagram or Facebook or any of the hundreds of messenger apps there are these days. Why we need so many. But if you do have a question for us pertaining to anything we've talked about on the show or anything you want us to talk about on the show, you can hit us up on our socials. If you search at The Northern Hunter on either Facebook or Instagram, you'll find us there. We have a contact button on our website at thenorthernhunter.com. We also have a shop page and a partners page where you can find the Stealthy Hunter glassing pad and rifle cover. You can find Beta 907 lures, the links to all of those sites, and the discount codes that coordinate with each one. Get you a discount, helps them, helps us. We appreciate all the support. We're always trying to put out more content for you guys, get into new avenues, and we really appreciate all the love we've gotten from you guys. And we're going to keep doing this, so hopefully you all enjoy the wintertime. And until we see you next week, get out there, get after it, and good luck. See you there.
All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. Stealthy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to StealthyHunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All Stealthy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.